What happened indeed? Okay, maybe stream is up right now. I don't know. Hello?
Hello, Cappy. Is your internet still dying?
Yeah.
Oh, are you live?
Yeah, mostly.
Oh no. Oh,
I
are you
see it,
still reading
hear it.
scary stories?
Yeah, I'm going to.
You got this, Cappy. I believe in you. What story you gotta start off with first?
I don't know yet. Oh, my image. Do you see this
Wonder.
shade? Tell me what you see.
Oh,
Don't look
hey,
away.
Khalid. Welcome to stream. How are you doing today? How are you doing today?
What are you looking for indeed? Only your favorite person.
Wait, 11 months already. Damn. Thank you for the sub.
11 million.
There we go.
No, no, no. It's a familiar face. A familiar face.
I need to strengthen that compressor right there. Give me a second.
Oh God, my stream.
Oh,
Oh, okay, we're back.
I almost spilled water all over my desk. Uh, that would have been bad, you know?
It's mainly Twitch that's dying. YouTube seems to be okay. Yeah, he's back.
Who's back?
Hot dog man. You guys are sharing a hot dog together. How does that make you feel? Hi, Rappy.
Okay.
Okay.
It's
Oh,
going pretty well. It's going pretty well. Currently, Howard, we're adding instance dungeon, right? Because right now there's not really content that people can do that is like synced up perfectly, right? So that's what we're doing. So for world instance in here, then world libraries. There you go.
do you guys want the words on the screen or no?
Where you have to move the screen.
Yeah, from the stories. Oops. I think it might be best if I don't put more onto my screen.
we trying to do again?
Oh, one last thing before we start. J-Bent gave me this to put on the screen.
Yeah. Okay, does this work? So let's go through the logic here. Could this be Elif? I think this might be Elif. Okay,
We
yeah,
have a
that works.
very spooky stream here.
Oh, are you adding reverb to your voice?
No.
Is this just how you sound, Kathy?
Yeah.
Makes sense.
I think we should read the shorter ones today since it started late. Oh, hang on one sec. I'm gonna use my phone to read, but my phone is at 6%, so I gotta plug it in.
Classic Kathy. I gotta keep consistent with these titles, you know, guys?
Oh, wait. Yeah, let's read the deer one. Deer.
There we go. There we go. That should fix things.
Okay. Let me put the title up.
Okay, this paves the way to make like personal instances and stuff. Content. Which I think is pretty important, you know? Because if we don't have this, then we can't sync up enemies, right? Because we need like a central authority for all this stuff. So which story are you starting with, Cappy?
There's something wrong with the deer on our nature reserve.
Oh, okay. Have fun with that.
Thanks. Wait, am I all caps? The deer. No. They've started standing up. Which is not descriptive enough because I feel like deer always stand up. Unless they're laying down.
I think I just swapped these around here.
I'm ready.
Let's go.
There's something
Mhm.
wrong with the deer on our nature reserve. They've started standing up. I've lived in this town all my life. I know all the weird traditions that come with living in a place as remote as mine. But nothing explains what happens at our deer park. I used to come out here most evenings during the pandemic, park up by the base of the hill, overlooking the sanctuary, and just immerse myself in nature. I was always mindful of the distance I had to keep from the deer, particularly during mating season. And it wasn't like the deer didn't know what a car was. These were in their own reserve, sure, but the trail cut right through their vast fields, and they'd grown accustomed to seeing cars, all manners of time, all manners of times in the day and evening, which is what makes the situation all more unsettling. Starting last week, a sign was put up on the entrance gate to the park. Impossible to miss as the car slowed and the tires rolled over the metal grates. With it being the late hours and very few cars on the road, I decided to stop and read it in full. A polite notice to our valued visitors entering the Oboro Nature Reserve. Our deer are exhibiting unusual behaviors, and we are politely requesting you to observe the following guidelines in place as to best protect yourself and the well-being of our deer. 1. While the park is open 24 hours a day, we are recommending visitors do not stop their cars during observable grazing periods and on midsummer nights. You are welcome to drive through and observe from a distance, but please do not slow down or stop. Should you be slowed down or stopped at any other time, the deer the deer haven't done anything yet. Should you be slowed or stopped at any other time, and the deer be curious by your vehicle, act calmly and do not speed up. Let them inspect you and judge you as a safe passerby. If they begin snorting, that is your cue to leave. There have been reports of deer standing on their hind legs and remaining idle in the fields. These rumors are a fallacy. Please do not pay attention to them. There is a black stag that holds dominion over the western herd. His antlers are sharp and his stride is impressive, but do not attempt to approach him. Please pay him the respect you would normally, and do not stare at any of the females in his harem. He will charge you. Bucks are not friendly. Deer remember faces. Do deer really remember faces?
Wait, do they? Wait, let me search this up. You
I was gonna
keep reading your story. I'll tell you. I'll tell
Wait,
you.
I was
Okay.
gonna ask Australian Google. Deer remember
Um.
faces. They can recognize you from a distance and will verify your smell as you get closer, listening intently the entire time. There are many of them, and only one of you. You would do well to keep that in mind. Lastly, no matter what salacious rumors have been propagating amongst the community, the deer are not congregating in the dead of night. Deer are social animals that sleep and graze together in a herd. This is normal. The deer are acting normally. Drive safely, keep your doors locked, and have a lovely drive in the Oboro Nature Reserve. Strange, right? The notice wasn't your usual steel sign with carefully embossed wording. Rather, it'd been hastily marked up and nailed to the wall adjacent to the welcome sign, as if in a hurry. I'd not heard any sorts of rumors around town, and nobody had complained about the deer park, where we're a population of maybe 2,000, so it's not hard for word to get out. Still, I had my routine and intended to stick to it. Some of the info was valuable for newcomers. There was indeed a large black buck who paraded the western herd. His name was Jojo,
There we go.
and I fully believed he would gore anyone who outstayed their welcome or got too close. A beautiful specimen of
Nice.
muscle and authority, he ensured his harem never strayed too far. and seemed to be borderline obsessive about making sure they never went across to the eastern side where the large swaths of trees sat. In fact, I'd observed him on a couple of occasions, actively nudging or ramming younger males away from the split in the road and back to safety. On the rare occasion that a member of the herd crossed the line, he would refuse to acknowledge them and actively keep them away from entering, as if they were banished. As I drove through the archway, I realized I'd not seen many deer in the eastern section of the park. Looking out my window and staring at the makeshift forest to my right, and a burning question coming to the forefront of my mind that didn't leave as I reached the hill overlooking both sides of the hill. Where are the rest of the deer? It was unnerving to sit there and try to enact my ritual of riding under the clear night when there is a strict absence of the herd where they should be. I tried to focus, but something was pulling my eyes to look at that spot time and time again. Eventually, I decided that I needed to get some fresh air and take a better look, satiate my curiosity, and then with my mind at ease, I can get back to finishing my blog. The air is humid when I step outside, no breeze, and the stars are out on full display. Thank goodness for no light pollution in the countryside. I leave the engine running.
Light pollution.
And I leave the engine running and walk to the barrier my car is parked in front of, leaning over and taking a pair of binoculars I bring for slower days when I want to see the deer in better detail. As I direct my vision to the eastern herd, I see something darting in the tree line. It's quick, hairy, and seemed to move the second my binoculars motioned towards it. Even a deer shouldn't be that spooked, especially from the distance. My joints seize up, and I damn near drop the binoculars. When I see a familiar snorting from behind me, I turn to see Jojo, standing 15 feet from me, just as the rear of my car, and his eyes gleaming in the rear lights. His head is low, and his antlers are thick.
I'm just imagining this is like the JoJo protagonists from season 1 or 2 that are like 8 feet tall, you know?
Jojo is taller than that. This is the next JoJo.
How tall is Jonathan?
I don't know.
Okay, apparently Jonathan Joestar is 6'5" and or 195 centimeters.
Do you think that's taller than a deer, or? Yeah, I started with the deer.
From JoJo.
No, I know, I'm saying.
Wait, how tall is a deer long-wise?
I don't know, with antlers. You didn't tell me if deer remember faces.
Yes they do.
Oh.
Are we talking about reindeer? Moose?
Deer in general. Like white-tailed
Elk are
deer.
like 8 feet.
Like a regular
like
of the mill deer.
White-tailed deer?
Yeah.
They're like 95 to 220 centimeters. So that's like 7 feet.
So they're taller than this is the next JoJo. Are you afraid? What's wrong with deer being 8 feet? What deer has seen?
Remember, that's them like standing on like their 4 legs. If they were able to stand like on their feet, they would probably be like a good like 2-3 feet taller, you know?
They would be tall. Now I'm freaked out every time I see
like...
deer, though. If they remember what I look like. No wonder they're looking at my house.
They're looking into your house, Cappy?
Yeah! I'll show you pictures.
Oh no. Oh no.
It's gonna be that scene of Adventure Time where the deer... Oh my no! He takes off his hooves and he wiggles his fingers. Okay. His head is low and his antlers are thick, sharp and aimed at me. In that moment, I don't know if he's gonna charge and whether I should be fighting for my damn life. Instead, I do as I was instructed and stay still, not making sudden movements as he snorts again, closing the gap between us slowly. As he gets within 5 feet of me, he rears his head up. I see the most baffling expression on his face for a fleeting moment. Fear. Whitetail at the shoulder are about 4 feet standing. Up is about 6 to 7 feet, yes. Don't trust deer. I don't trust them. Something ripples through the eastern forest, and birds begin flying away in droves. Some of the deer, heard in the western area, are circling something, and Jojo immediately bounds down, out of sight to control the chaos. I waste no time getting in my car and driving down after them, keeping the doors locked. Yes, because that's what you need to worry about, the deer picking your locks. The windows open a crack, and my speed at a decent crawl. As I come
so sick.
along the embankment that connects to the road, I see Jojo running full sprint towards another deer. He knocks the rival over and contorts the body as it skids across the grass and falls into the trail just ahead of my car. I know I'm not supposed to, but I stop the car and wait. In a choice between breaking the rules and breaking my car, I'll choose the former any day. I thought this story was hilarious and threw it in for the laws. Didn't expect you to lead with it. It's not spooky, but I think deer are naturally spooky though.
Cappy, Cruder says that if deer want it, they can break a door easily.
No, what I'm saying is they can't pick the locks.
Why would they need to? Most
Right,
break-ins are
that's what
because
I
people break the
mean.
door.
Why worry about locking the door when they can't pick the locks? That's not how they're gonna break into your car. They're just gonna ram your car.
Also, the thing is, doors open like outwards. Like if a deer wanted to open your lock, they would have to like have sentience, you know?
They would have to have opposable thumbs.
I mean, maybe they could get their antlers underneath the door frame and then like pry it open and
I
then
guess.
like pull, but that seems like too many steps, you know?
It does. When they could just ram the car. Locks won't stop a deer,
Cruder
they
says
know
to
too
a
much.
car door, they can't break it. Cruder says they can't break a car door.
Are we sure?
Yeah, I trust Cruder.
I don't
Oh, you
know.
trust Cruder?
Maybe not a regular deer. I feel like a moose could break a door.
Let me search this up. Can moose break open doors?
Alright, where are we? The western...
Yes, a moose can break a car and damage it. Moose are large animals that weigh up to 1,300 pounds.
That's a lot.
Oh, damn.
I've never seen a moose before.
You got me. I'm so congested. I'm sick and dying, man.
Why are you streaming?
Moose are different. Yeah, moose. Is the plural of moose mice?
No, I think it's just moose.
Is it mooses?
I think you could say mooses. I think it's just moose. Moose are terrifying. I saw one once. I've never seen a moose.
Cruder, what is the... Is the plural of moose really just moose?
I just have all these dumb beer. Moosin?
Cruder says moose. Cruder says moose.
Moose?
Remember, if you're reading a story about a moose, there's no way to tell if it's multiple moose or one moose, you know?
That's true. Maybe there's more than one deer named Jojo. Maybe they're all named Jojo.
Meese?
Meese.
Cruder says it's meese.
Meese?
Cruder, are you a moose? Or are you a meese expert? Okay.
The western herd deer, under Jojo's command, are gathering behind him, making horrific shrieks of terror. Jojo strides up and bows his head again in front of the still contorted deer, antlers on full display, and dripping with black blood. It was a clear threat. Do not come back here if you value your life. A flock of moose. I started wondering how I'd
Oh,
safely get
okay.
this deer out of the way, or if I could mount the grass on the other side and go around it, when I saw something horrific
Cappy,
unfold in front of me. Yes,
Cruder says that he lives in Alaska, so he would know. I trust Alaskans about moose.
about
You know,
moose. There's no moose where I
yeah.
live. There are only deer.
Aren't you a bit
White-tailed
more
deer.
southern, south
Yeah,
than I am?
there's no moose. There's no moose. There,
I've seen moose here.
there are like bears, and that's the most exotic you're getting.
Oh, that's kind of sad. The place I'm like near is like known for bears. It's great. We've seen bears in like our front lawn before.
I haven't seen a bear in my neighborhood or anything, but there would be bears in my city.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
Being a little
You could.
rambunctious,
What's the next
bearing it
story,
up.
Cappy?
I'm still reading it.
Okay.
But this deer, the deer is making me remember another story I heard, and I will talk about it afterwards. I was less
Yeah.
than 10 feet from a black bear once. Bears are so cute though. They're friend coded. The body twisted itself around, and the limbs snapped to reset themselves. The head still cracked at an ugly angle, bones sticking out of the sides as it got into shaking legs. When it screamed, it sounded like its lungs were filled with blood. A horrible muted cry of anguish that backed up every deer but Jojo. I don't know what was keeping this fucking thing standing, but it let its head flop lazily around as it carefully backed away onto the eastern side of the reserve before bounding into the tree line as if nothing nothing were wrong. My rational mind chalked it up to adrenaline and the instinct to survive, but it was impossible to shake the feeling that something was wrong. I carried on driving as soon as the deer was out of sight, not looking at Jojo or the others as I carried down the trail. For the remaining few minutes, I felt unseen eyes staring intently at me until I crossed the threshold and back into civilization. I'd never been more grateful to see other humans, or my bed. Something about the whole incident just took it out of me. As I slept that night, I'd dream I was a deer alongside Jojo, frolicking in the herd and grazing peacefully. But as I cast my eyes upward to the sky, a bitter chill on the wind, I saw the moon bathed in an almost purple plume. A strange light cast onto the land and noises rustling from the woods opposite. I don't know how I knew this, but something in me instinctively knew we weren't supposed to go there. I saw shapes begin to emerge from the trees, and that horrible shriek ring out as I woke up in a sweat. I leaned forward to catch my breath and grab a glass of water as I changed positions to reach for my nightstand. I swear I heard the sound of something running up the trail to my house. It was probably still half asleep, but that didn't make it any more damn unnerving. I decided it would be best to drive out the next night and confront my concerns head on. If I'm
Why would
not...
you do that?
Yeah, the deer already let you live once. If I'm not going to sleep soundly, then I should use my time wisely and document what I'm seeing. Maybe pass it to the rangers in the morning, right? When I drove back there last night, the atmosphere was vastly different. A mist was enshrouding the trail, and the majority of the deer on the western side huddled together, shaking and staring intently at the other side of the nature reserve. I couldn't see Jojo anywhere. Strange, I thought. Alpha males patrol their herds dutifully. Why wasn't he there? I parked up at my usual spot, and making sure he wasn't around, I pulled out my binoculars again and stared at the eastern area, the clouds beginning to part as the moon shone through. There was movement all along the tree lines as shapes began emerging one by one. I think it took my mind a moment to process what I was seeing. I'd finally seen the deer on the eastern side, but they were wrong. Very, very wrong. The story goes from 0 to 100 real fast. Standing on their hind legs and taking confident, awkward steps, they marched out of the trees with their heads craned to the sky, all of them emitting that horrible sound that their heads were being held underwater as they screamed. It reverberated in my ears and made my skin break out in goosebumps. There were dozens of them, maybe a couple of hundred. Some were dragging a structure out with them, others hauling a writhing shape I couldn't see. They congregated in a small huddle, the center of which was obscured from my vision. I looked over to see Jojo's herd, and I saw the fear in their eyes, so many of them shaking and their teeth bared, a primal fear we humans have largely lost in the safety of being the dominant species. But the night showed me we're not as powerful as we think we are. As the huddle broke away and began walking again towards the edge of their field, I saw that they'd been huddled around Jojo. He was still alive but barely moving and breathing heavily, his eyes glazed over. When he began to come to, he started shrieking like a fawn. It was unnerving. They dragged him to the structure. Primitive set of steps with a hollowed out hole in its center, coated in a thick substance on the sides, just large enough for Jojo to be thrown into. I watched these not deer, use their front hooves to hoist him up and into the hole, his screaming incessant the entire time. They stood around it, their necks cracked as they stared at the moon and shrieked. I looked up with them, wondering if they saw if what they saw was up there in the skies, a kind of primitive god for these creatures. I should have known better, of course. Whatever god these deers prayed to, it didn't reside up above. No, it lurked deep below. A low groan called out in response. It possessed the same blood-filled lungs that these monstrosities had, and Jojo's deer huddled closer together as its roar. Jojo had stopped moving, his crying completely gone, as the not deer fell silent and formed a circle around their altar, snorting in unison. It grew to a fever pitch before something began dragging Jojo from beneath, ripping at his limbs and pulling until a horrific squelch indicated the top had separated from the bottom. The hole spurted out blood and chunks of deer as the not deer celebrated, danced in the rain, and feasted on the pieces. One final roar rang out from the unseen creature. It shook the ground, and I felt my balance waver for just a moment, steadying myself on the car. I know I should have booked it out of there, but I was desperate to understand what I was seeing, rationalizing that perhaps this was a bizarre art piece, maybe a protest from an animal rights group, or even a bunch of edgy satanic teens. That
Why do people just never have self-preservation in these stories?
I think, like they
yeah.
said, their confidence of being the dominant species.
Cappy, I think like the real horror in like these novels isn't like the monsters or whatever. It's that people like this actually do exist in the world and are just walking among us, you know?
To clarify, the eastern deer kidnapped Jojo and sacrificed him to the deer devil. That wasn't clear. I promise the other
The
stories are
deer
better.
devil.
I didn't think he would start with this one.
Okay then.
But that rational voice in my head grew very, very quiet when I grabbed my binoculars to look again. Every single one of them was staring up at me, emotionless, black eyes fixated on my position. I didn't wait any longer. I drove out of there at a breakneck pace, not looking at either side of the park on my exit, and damn near coming off the road with the lack of traction. As I got into the archway, my tires smashing against the grate, I'd inadvertently attracted the forest ranger on duty. He pulled me over and walked up to my window, a friendly smile on his face. You know there's a speed limit there for a reason, right, son? Yeah, I'm sorry. I got a little spooked is all. I smiled back. Nerves shot to hell. He raised an eyebrow. You didn't break one of our rules now, did you? Oh no, I kept them. It's just, well, Jojo got attacked by the eastern deer, and I don't think he's doing well. It was just a shock to take in. I figured telling a half-truth would be best. Couldn't exactly say what thought I'd really seen now, could I? That's so. Well, they make their choices carefully. We don't know much, but we do know not to interfere. This is how it's always been. Animals have strange practices. You get how it is. But so long as they didn't look at you, you're fine. Dear remember faces after all. Thanks for visiting. Drive safe. He smiled again and tipped his hat before walking off to his station. My blood ran cold and I couldn't get those words out of my head the entire drive home. But so long as they didn't look at you, you're fine.
Yeah, that's
I've,
not always.
I've not stepped outside my house since last night. I live in a remote part of the village, and while I enjoy the privacy, it's been a hotbed for strange noises and unsettling emotions. Everywhere I go in my home, I feel like I'm being watched by some vacant eyes. What happens
I
now?
don't know what's happening either, Kimpy. Don't worry about it.
What happens to those they look at? I can't get their
We're
eyes
just
out
kind
of
of
my
coding right
head,
now.
and I can't sleep worth a damn either. This isn't going to end until I figure out what they want. I wish I had more for you. I wish I could tell you what the not deer were, what they prayed to, why they sacrificed, what the ranger knew. But there's so many unknowables that it makes my head spin. It's just like being deep in the woods. So many twists and turns. You never know which is the right path to take and what danger lurks behind every tree. I don't know what the deer are doing. I don't know what is going on at that park. But if you have value for your life, you'll stay far, far away from it. And whatever monster they're praying to. What is this? Unreviewed content. I don't want to open Reddit. Hmm.
Here we go. Yeah, I don't know what's happening either, Kimpy. I'm just kind of coding in the corner while Cappy reads some stories that I assume Jay sent.
Yeah. But let
Yeah,
me
I
let
knew it.
me
I knew it.
tell you the deer story real quick. Hang on.
Would you like me to summarize the story? Yeah, sure. I'm dying, guys. I'm so sick right now. Okay, we're gonna squash those commits right there. What is it, Cappy?
Hang on, I gotta find the story.
Oh, okay.
I don't think I
Yeah.
told this on stream.
Which one on stream?
So it's a Florida man story. It's about
Oh, have
this.
you ever been to Florida, Cappy?
I've not. I've flown over
And
Florida. Does that count?
yes.
Okay, then yes. um, the Florida man story. There's a guy, like,
Damn, a guy?
yeah. I guess I don't know if he was like a realtor or something like that, but like, this part, this like street in Tampa
You
was
got a
like,
new mic, by the way?
no,
Because your mic gain is really overblown. Also, hey, Slayer.
is it?
I think so. I hear more like machine rumbling than normal.
Machine rumbling.
Yeah.
I don't hear any
Oh,
machines.
that's kind of what I got. That's how I got from it. What is it, Cap?
I said I don't hear any machines. Unless you're hearing my headphones.
I think it might be like the internal static of your computer.
Maybe.
Oh no, guys. Oh
Um,
no. Okay, this should work, I think. This should work.
but
Okay, I've coded like most of what I needed today.
that's your
What's good?
basically the street contracted him to like figure out how to get people to shop at their street. So
Yeah.
he was like, "Oh, well, we used to have like this winter festival when I was in school. Like we should do that."
Yeah.
And so basically he wanted to throw a winter festival. He wanted to have actual snow in Tampa, Florida. Um he wanted to have they had the world's, or not, maybe not the world's biggest, but the country's biggest Christmas tree.
Yeah.
And they wanted to have like a ski
Hey.
range and all this other
Yeah.
stuff. So every single step something went wrong. So the first thing, they had the tree and
Yeah.
they didn't properly secure the tree, so the tree like fell through the concrete and it like ruptured like the septic system. And so they had to clean up all of the sewage and it ruined some of the tree.
Yeah.
And then so they didn't actually like look for someone that makes snow. They just looked for someone that usually makes ice for like fishing boats. And so the snow that they had was actually just like shaved ice, so it was not soft like snow. Which I don't expect Floridians to know what snow actually feels like, but yeah, it's not the same.
Yeah. Wait. Didn't they have snow in Florida, or was that Texas? Like
They
in
had snow in
2020?
Texas.
Oh, okay.
Um, so the snow was like cutting people up because it was ice. And then they were trying to the ski ramp with
Yeah.
snow, but every single time they tried to fill one half of it, it would melt before they could fill the other half.
Yeah.
So they had like an Olympic skier. They wanted him to do the ramp as like the
Yeah.
inaugural like use of the ramp. So he did it. I think he almost got hurt too. I'm not sure. But basically he had to
Yeah.
pretty much ski down a basically empty ramp because the snow kept melting. And
Yeah.
there was a lady that went on the ramp that got seriously hurt. I don't remember what happened, but she sued them afterwards.
Yeah.
And then um kids were being bad. Well, they weren't really being bad, but like it's snow. So they were throwing snowballs, but of course the snow is ice, so it hurts.
Yeah.
Um and then the part that made me remember the deer.
Yeah.
They had some reindeer that they had gotten. I don't remember where they got it from. But basically they put the reindeer like in the zoo until they were ready. And then when
Yeah.
the organizers went to go retrieve the deer, they spooked the deer so much that the deer like ran into the fence and killed themselves.
Oh.
Uh and then they had like two deer left, so they were just like, well, we're not gonna bother them because we don't want to kill them by accident. So they just left the deer there. And then
Yeah.
um some person that was like, I don't know, just there was like, hey, I have a reindeer if you want to, you know, need a reindeer. And they were like, okay, um sure, bring your reindeer. And the reindeer was molting and he was very terrifying and scared the children.
Yeah.
And then they had some seals, and seals should not be out where there's a lot of sun.
Yeah.
So the seals got sunburned, and
Yeah.
they were scaring the children because they were terrifying looking because they were sunburned. And
Yeah.
then they hired like a bunch of Santa Claus to like take turns being Santa Claus. one Santa
Yeah.
Claus upset the parents because he was just telling the kids that they could get like whatever. Like the kid were like, I want like an expensive car. And the Santa Claus was like, you're gonna get that.
W W W W.
So that made the parents mad. Then they had a Santa Claus, like, there was like a clothing store that let the Santa Clauses like take a break there and change.
Yeah.
And one Santa Claus hid out in the store and waited till it closed and broke into the jewelry store next door and robbed them.
Yeah.
Then there was another Santa Claus that had a secret like alcohol like bottle on him and it was drinking.
Yeah.
So the the Santa Clauses were bad. I think that was all the bad things. I can't remember everything. But yeah, everything kept going wrong and basically he got in trouble for that. But
Yeah.
he didn't go to jail or nothing. He didn't even have to pay people that were suing him.
W.
Yeah. And they never had another winter festival again. Okay, let's read another story.
Oh, nice. Congrats, Crimpy. I am now sick. Crimpy.
Let's read the dog one. You like dogs.
Thank you. Okay.
If you like dogs, you might not want to read this one. To be honest, oh no!
Yeah.
We'll read it anyways. Oh, let me change this.
Then we close the minigame, right?
I love this story. It was the first story that actually spooked me, really. Okay. My dog was lost for 3 days. What came back wasn't my dog. It was a capybara.
Oh, more skinwalkers. It was a capybara.
As a kid, I was raised in the small fishing community on the eastern side of Canada, surrounded by the Gulf of St. Lawrence and the boreal forests. The entirety of the land was close to 4,000 foot square, with an even smaller number of residents sprawled out over Main Street, the main road running straight through our little town, and farming houses spread widely between areas of trees that were changed to domestic and residential homes when agriculture stopped being profitable. In total, our community is surrounded by a vast expanse of ocean and a seemingly endless barrage of trees that spread over 55% of Canada's entire country. I spent most of my life hunting in the woods, so you can imagine my joy when my parents got me a hunting dog. Sandy was a Shetland sheepdog. Oh my god, I love Shetland. And while they were more fit to be herding and tracking sheep over grassy plains, rather than rabbits and deer through the dense forest, it didn't stop me from taking him with me on every excursion I possibly could. Sandy had been by my side, and for enough hunting trips that he'd grown accustomed to waking up just before breaking daylight, and on a few occasions, helped track down small game like squirrels and rabbits through considerably large areas of forest. Sandy wasn't my property, and wasn't treated like he belonged to me. Sandy was a member of the family, my best companion, and my truest friend. I think fondly back on all the times he'd sit in the front seat of the truck without being told, ready to go for a walk in whatever part of the forest I took him to. I can honestly say that there will never be a dog that will fill the void that Sandy left in my life. I find that dog lovers relate to that sentiment more than others. It was October 30th.
Have you ever had a dog?
Yeah, when I was younger.
Okay.
I had not a German Shepherd. I had a Golden Retriever.
Oh, that's cool.
But then, my mom was like, no, he's too big. Because my grandparents bought him.
Animals?
Yeah, my mom doesn't like animals. My grandparents bought him for me without telling my parents.
Yeah.
So, I had a dog for a little bit.
Yeah.
It was October 30th, the first day of deer hunting season. I had been talking with my family about taking Sandy, my hunting gear, and some essentials to one of the cabins my grandfather owned in his heyday off an unmarked road a few hundred miles into the wilderness for a few days. This was met with a lot of protesting, but nothing could stop me from getting in some time looking for wild game in an area that wasn't already picked clean by illegal hunters earlier in the month. Everything was packed into the old blue Ford, Sandy included, and a few hours of driving later, we were setting up camp in one of my grandfather's secluded old cabins. Here's where things got fucked up. Sandy, I'm so sorry. I had spent most of the time of my life being in the wilderness. There were only a handful of times that things had gotten weird for me. But usually everything that can be explained with scientific reason. That's why I brushed off Sandy's weirdness on the first few nights, chalking it up to the nervousness of a dog that's capable of hearing the far-off noises of various coyotes, wolves, bears, and moose. This was untouched territory, of course. There had been plenty of time for wildlife to set up camp here, too. The first night was fairly normal. I had set up Sandy's bed in the corner of the living room, next to the TV, that looked like it came out of the early 90s.
Okay.
I figured I'd give Sandy the option to have some place to lay down for a while, despite the fact that he kept curled up with me 9 times out of 10. Close to at 10 at night, Sandy looked straight at the wooden door and whined. I figured he needed to piss and opened the door to let him out, not worried about having my best friend stray too far from me. Instead, he just sat inside the door, looking out at the forest edge beyond the path.
In the door?
Yeah, in the door. I too stood and looked for a few minutes before deciding he had just heard an errant critter close to the cabin. The rest of the night was fairly normal, and Sandy slept with me fine. That reminds me, my best friend was watching her dogs one night, and she said her dog randomly got up and like looked at the corner of the room and started barking.
Yeah.
It's creepy.
It is.
The second night, I chalked the weirdness up to Sandy's stress. Earlier in the day, we had been walking a few miles through the woods beyond the house, and I thought I heard the sound of twigs cracking under something heavy. I hoped it wasn't a moose, because my shotgun wouldn't have stood a chance, but something changed in Sandy that I didn't pay close attention to at the time. He hunched himself on his hind legs, his front pressed close to the ground, his mouth pulled up over his teeth, and he growled towards nothingness. I figured we'd try hunting again later if whatever it had left. Oh my god, that scared me. I figured we'd try hunting again. You should go rest.
Yeah, I'm gonna go lay down for a while.
Goodbye.
How do I leave Discord again?
I don't know. He hunched himself on his hind legs, his front pressed to the ground, his mouth pulled over his teeth, and he growled towards nothingness. I figured we'd try hunting again later, if whatever it was had left, and he should be up feeling up to it. But once we were inside, he didn't want to move. Even when I tried to get him to go outside and do his business, he sat at the door and cried, wailing at me to let me know he didn't want to go out there. I didn't pressure him. If he pissed on the floor, so be it. Sandy never acted up before. I could excuse an accident or two. If he really didn't want to be out there, it must have been a bear, I thought, before locking the door and calling it a night. The third night is where things went to hell, and I still don't fully understand what happened. Sandy didn't eat all day. I managed to shoot a rabbit early in the morning. When Sandy decided he didn't want to be outside any longer than he had to, and retired inside for the day, I cooked it up, threw a little gravy on it, and gave it to my dog. I didn't do this all the time, but I figured now was a special occasion, and maybe a treat would put him in a better mood for another walk the next day. Sandy didn't touch it. He didn't so much as sniff it. Instead, he sat at my side on the couch, watching the doorway intently. I tucked him under one of my arms, and he laid his head on my lap. Eyes still locked on that door. Close to 3 hours of watching grainy VHS tapes and on an outdated television set, Sandy started crying, hugging himself close to my body. This is where my judgment took me down the wrong path for the first time of many. It must sound silly, being my dog's protector rather than my dog being mine, but this was my family. I figured that if there were something out there that was scaring Sandy so bad, then it was my job to do something about it. I loaded my 410, I don't know, guns, opened the door, stood in the doorway and waited. I loaded my bubble blaster, opened the door and stood in the doorway and waited. I must have waited at least half an hour, staring into nothing. There was barely any sound, save for the faint buzz of insects and leaves rustling in the cold wind. Moose aren't elegant creatures, and if it were a moose, I would have heard it coming. Around the 40-minute mark, Sandy took off like a shot into the darkness of the trees beyond the path, barking wildly. I started to get worried despite my knowledge that my dog isn't entirely helpless in the wilderness. There were still bigger animals that would have liked to take a bite out of him if there wasn't a lot of food for the winter. I heard Sandy's bark fade away in the distance, and then stop altogether. I waited hours standing in the doorway with my shotgun cocked and ready to pull down whatever it was that was waiting in the woods. I waited hours for Sandy to come back to the house. I waited until the sun was cracking through the trees. And then I waited until that night, sitting on my porch step, feigning off sleep deprivation, to see my dog come back. Sandy did come back, but not for another 3 days. Fog had rolled in at that point, and it was getting darker, the night painting the sky a navy blue. Tracking over the last few days proved futile, and I started to get worried that I'd need to leave and find more provisions to last me the next few nights. I couldn't leave Sandy up there, lost in the woods, cold and probably hungry. The thought that he might be waiting out there for me to find him and bring him back home was distressing enough. I was packing a bag that hung on the coat rack next to the door with what I'd need for the next day's trip. I figured tomorrow would be the last day before I go into town and see if my father could help me find Sandy. He was a retired graying man, but I was sure if I brought up Sandy's name, he'd be more than willing to help me search for him. Thankfully, Sandy came back before I'd even finished that train of thought. I saw him from the window on the path that led down to the main road, a few dozen feet away from the house. Normally, I'd hear him scamper to the doorway and paw at the door a few times, eager to come in. But this was different. I could see the reflection in his eyes as green pearls in the murky fog that had swamped the house. For a moment, I thought it might be an animal, but the outline of his body in the wisp of thick, low-lying clouds was unmistakable. Still, despite myself, I hesitated. There was something different about his body language. I stared out the window for a few more moments before reason overcame my gut instinct. Sandy could be hurt, I thought, or worse. I flung the doorway open, but he didn't come right away. Instead, he stood there watching me intently, and when he didn't move, I whistled to him. Here, Sandy. I coaxed him towards the house. Here, boy. Uh, The way he moved was different. It was as though his hips had been dislocated, and the angle of his paw changed direction with every step, as though he'd forgotten how to walk properly. His head was bowed to the ground, but his teeth weren't bare. He didn't seem aggressive. The only way I could describe the look he gave me was sheepish, like he'd just gotten into something he wasn't supposed to, and I yelled at him for it. I thought he might hurt himself hopping up onto the elevated step if he dislocated his hips, but he did just fine. His back half swung a little, oddly enough, and his paws almost folded underneath himself, but he didn't go sprawling. He sat on the step and didn't take his look off me. It wasn't until I had moved from the doorway completely, opened the door wide, and waited for him to walk in that he moved. Straight to his bed. He didn't stop at my hand and sniff at me. He didn't wait for pets or jump up on me like he used to. It was straight to his bed, where he sat and watched me for quite some time afterwards. I returned to the movie at hand. I called him a few times, but he didn't respond. His ears didn't so much as raise to the sound of his voice or the pat of my hand on the worn-out couch beside me. I had missed my buddy, but I wasn't about to move him physically towards me. There was something about him that said I shouldn't have let him in, but I chalked it up to silliness, and a few hours later I went to bed. The more I think back on it, I don't recall him blinking once. He sat there like a statue, and when I turned off the light, I could still see the reflection of jade green following me as I went into my room and shut the door. Oh my god, best viewers on stream, boo? Stream, boo? I see you, boo. Possible ban evader, it says. What do you mean a ban evader? Not a ban evader. How can you be a ban evader when I haven't banned him yet? I could have sworn I heard him walk in the night. The sound of nails clicking against the wooden floor coming up to the door of my room. But they were slow and deliberate. They weren't like quickness of Sandy realizing I'd gone to bed and coming to curl up. Remove the space. I heard the noises stop outside my bedroom, but I didn't hear his whine. I thought nothing of it and fell into a deep sleep. When I woke up in the morning, I figured it must have been a dream. Sandy was still sitting in the upright position I left him in when I went to bed. It was as though he didn't move a muscle the entire night, and when I said good morning, he didn't so much as wag his tail. He did follow me into the kitchen, but he paused at the doorway when I put his bowl down on the floor and filled it up with supermarket dog food. Once again, his back half moved weirdly as he slowly made his way towards me. There was a nagging feeling that something was off-putting about the way he looked that day. It was like he had gotten a little longer overnight. Sandy hunched down, like when he was walking to the door that night before. He didn't come into the kitchen. I figured he must have been hungry, being out in the wild for so long, but he eyed me like he was waiting for me to come a little closer rather than touch the food. It goes without saying, but after a few moments of staring contest between me and my unblinking dog, I called off that foolishness and called his name out loudly. Not even a flinch. I didn't want to move closer to my dog to leave the kitchen door. That was my Sandy, and the most damage he'd done was eat flies. Sure enough, as I passed him, he turned and his body swayed unnaturally, but he didn't move towards me. When I left that day, I couldn't find anything. The deer tracks in the mud were made a few days prior, and went cold off naturally made trails through the woods. I couldn't hear bugs or birds, or even the howl of a nearby coyote. The only sounds from miles away from the campsite were my own breathing and the sound of crunching leaves underneath my feet. When the sun started to set, I started making my way back, but I should have packed my shit and left. Just behind a cluster of trees, with the house just visible beyond the rise, I figured I found out the reason why the animals had abandoned this place. Generally, when there are mass animal deaths, that usually means that something is wrong in the area of the slaughter. Wildlife are usually smart enough to get the hell out of Dodge. Even cats are bred instinctively not to like drinking from water that is close to where their food is, because if you saw a dead animal close to a stream, you'd figure the stream was tainted and find another source of water. Hundreds of squirrels were disemboweled and strewn across the grass in an almost perfect circle. Most of them were skinned alive, but when I turned to heave up all the contents of my stomach, there were a dozen that were inside out. I couldn't help but vomit repeatedly as I tried my best to walk around the circles of tiny organs and mashed up bodies. Not just over the sight, but because the smell was ungodly. I don't know how long they'd been out there, but if I'd stumbled across them sooner, I'd have left with Sandy in tow immediately after. Gradually, the bodies stopped and delved into a random dead squirrel here and there. The biggest thing I managed to find, just a few feet off the unholy feeding ground, was a deer. It looked as though something had decided to skin it alive from hide to neck. Draped some of the skin over a branch like someone was tanning the hide. I don't know how long it had been there, but it smelled like it had been dead for quite some time. Despite the fact that there wasn't a single fucking fly. The head had been cut off clean, just above the shoulders, and when I realized the organs had been removed, I moved from a walking pace through the forest to a jog. Thankfully, the cabin wasn't too far off. I heaved one final time, wiped my mouth off the back of my sleeve, and looked up to the house to see Sandy watching me from the window. I tried to reason with myself and tell myself Sandy's odd behavior could have been trauma. I know it's stupid to think of it now, but at the time, it was only reasonable explanation. I had to keep myself from going insane. The elongating body could have just been the loneliness getting to me. Sandy had realized that there was something up with this place, and the second he noticed it, I should have taken the warning and taken back off into town. Once the door was shut behind me, I started packing the food and essentials back into boxes, moving quickly to try and get my things into the truck before night came. It'd be dangerous to try to maneuver my way through the trails at night, as the hills off Kelly's Mountain were steep, and in pitch darkness with my only companion being my headlights, it would be easy to slide off a ravine and never be heard from again. I didn't want to stay one more night, but I had no choice. I had gotten back to the house just moments before the sun finally receded past the horizon, and we were bathed in a heavy blue sky once again. A navy blue sky. I didn't pay attention to Sandy. He just sat at his bed and watched me pack. I figured no harm, no foul. I'd throw his stuff in the truck in the morning, and we'd be back in town before night the next day. Glancing at him for just a moment, it was a passing thought that he was looking a little longer today. And when I went to bed, it was a hard time getting to sleep for the next few hours. It must have been close to 4 or 5 in the morning when I heard it. The sound of whistling. The same whistle I used to call my dog. I broke out in the cold sweat when I realized that whoever slaughtered those squirrels, hung the skin up, left what he didn't need, could have very well broken into my house. The door to my room didn't make a sound as I opened it slowly. Thankfully, I waited a moment, listening to someone call my dog for a few more seconds before I dared poke my head out from the door frame to get a good look at whoever it was that could have hurt Sandy. The outside door was open. All I saw was the back half of Sandy, too long and lanky, almost coiled around the back of the door. His front half was outside. Whatever it was that impersonated my dog, it was whistling slowly, calling for Sandy. When I could have sworn that it had hunched down to the ground again and said, "Sandy," in the most ungodly voice I'd ever fucking heard. I closed the door just as softly as I opened it. I don't know how long I waited with my back pressed up against the door. I knew I left my gun in the bag on the coat rack. I know I didn't sleep. I waited until I saw the sun break over the horizon. And then I waited some more, until it must have been midday, and I finally got the balls to open the door again and make a break for the truck. I wouldn't die in that place. Sandy was gone, and the door was open. His food was untouched, but the fridge was open, and all the meat was gone. I didn't bother packing his stuff. I just threw my bag over my shoulder, made my way to the fort as fast as I could, and turned on the ignition. I can't describe the feeling that overcame me as I realized I'd have to leave Sandy in this place. The thought that he'd be dead was never a thought in my mind. I don't think I can cope with the knowledge that whatever I allowed in my house, whatever disemboweled those animals, could have done the same with him. I made my way down the winding path and roads as fast as I possibly could without veering off the cliffs. I felt like I was turning in circles down this labyrinth that would take me back to that house. But when I reached the pavement on the stretch of road back to town, I felt relief wash over me, thinking I was safe. Just as I was pulling off onto the cement, I felt something hard hit the back windshield, sending broken glass into the passenger seat. I only got a glimpse of the deer's decapitated head catching the unbroken glass and tumbling into the back seat. I cried for most of the way home, hands clenching around the steering wheel so hard my knuckles were white. I wish I could leave this off with a positive note. I wish I could tell you that I found Sandy at home waiting for me. I wish I could tell you that was the end of it, a traumatizing experience in the woods that I'll get over with time. Last night, I found it hard to sleep. I kept replaying the entirety of my trip to Kelly's Mountain in my head. I figured I wouldn't be sleeping for a while, and laid there listening to the wind through my open window. Why would you have your window open? I could have sworn I heard the whistle I used to call my dog with coming from the gorse edge. If you go on trips with your dog, I advise that you don't let them out of your sight for too long. What comes back might not be your dog. Why would you ever sleep with your window open? It was spooky. I'm afraid to look behind me. I just looked behind me. I like the stories that are like, they don't take you out of believability, you know? It's like your dogs are just a little bit weird. Definitely a step up from the deer one. Yeah, the deer one was more funny than scary. But I also naturally don't trust deer. So, but I naturally trust dogs. So when the dogs are not trustworthy, it's scarier. You know? I'm gonna go to sleep though. I'm tired. Thank you for the stories, friend. I wish my what's the word I want to use? Internet didn't suck before. That way it cut in so much to my stream time. The scariest story is the story of my 10k points. I'll try to figure it out. I haven't forgotten, I promise. Wait, did I not do the raid one? Oops. I will come up with a solution by next stream.
Yeah,
So-
Hyundai.
Oh, welcome back.
What are you finding a solution for?
how to get the 10k points back to Jabin.
Impossible. You could give him a sub, so that doubles his point reward, and he probably gets more than 10k a month.
What?
You could give him a sub.
Give him a sub? That
Yeah.
gives you 10k?
No, it doubles your point gain.
It doubles your... Oh, he's already a sub, though.
Oh. Feel issue then. Can't be, I'm dying.
You should take the rest.
So cold.
Boom.
I'm gonna go through medicine.
Goodbye. But yeah, we can have another scary night that isn't hopefully ruined by my internet. The points, we'll figure it out. We will figure the points out. Maybe I just need to Google it. It's like with the sound alerts, which is where the duck is. With the sound alerts, it doesn't let you refund it unless it was used like through the extension. But I don't have the extension on my stream. But I wonder if I put it on my stream, will I be able to refund it? I'm not sure. I will have to look at it. Give me 1 sec. Do you like my spooky room that I made quickly in Animal Crossing? It's cute. This... Oh. The person I'm trying to raid, I think they're going offline. Oh my god. Which is so slow. I'm trying to leave. Okay, we will... Thank you for I'm curious, if you did it again, would you want scarier stories or do you want to keep them at this level? Because I don't mind scarier. I think it would be good to have scary. I think I'm not gonna raid anybody because my I can't even freaking load Twitch right now. The wife peeking one was the scariest on my list, and even it was just a 9 out of 10. Alright. I will also look for scary things to fill in my room. My scary room. I chose the scariest of the... whatever these guys are. He's winking. Alright, thank you for joining me, friends. I will be back next week. You should have put Ghost Mic on screen. It is on screen! You see it? I couldn't have told it without it. Okay, friends. Have a good night.